And hello there. We welcome you in to this first edition of East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. I'm Blake Holland. Thank you for being with us. We start here with our guests, John Nix and Stuart Hene, running for mayor of Tyler. It's a nonpartisan race. This is a one-race election, if you will. I was looking at the sample ballot earlier. There were only two names on that ballot, Stuart Hene, John Nix, and I noted something on the ballot that says vote one or none, and so that's where we begin. And I'll start with you, Mr. Nix. Your name appears first on that ballot. Why should you be the one, the next mayor of Tyler?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me. In my opinion, the city needs to spend more time and more money focused on infrastructure and the things that matter to the everyday citizen, like road maintenance, water pipe replacement, actually addressing the water billing and how that's structured, and even the items that are on the water bill. And then actually adjusting how we're prioritizing our funds in our annual budget and making sure they're going to those things that matter the most to the citizens. All the while focusing on prioritized spending and making sure that we're keeping as much of our taxpayers' money in their pocket and that we're spending as wisely as possible.
And Mr. Hene, the same question to you. Why do you think you're the better man in this race to be the next mayor?
Blake, great question. First, thank you for having us.
You bet.
It's an honor to be here today. And I would say it's the messaging that we've been given since day one. We have that positive message of continuing the momentum in the track that we're on. Mayor Warren has done a great job of putting us where we are with a lot of the momentum and positivity and progress that we've made, especially the downtown revitalization project. And I believe I'm that candidate that can continue that momentum, continue us on that track forward. I believe also what sets me apart from my opponent is the endorsements by the police and fire department. I'm able to continue to work with them, lean in on them, and have their support, and they know that I'm going to support them 100% throughout my term as mayor. So I think those are two examples of why I'm the candidate to move forward.
And I do want to ask about the endorsements. You have the Tyler Patrolmen's Association, the Professional Firefighters Association, and the incumbent mayor, Don Warren's endorsement. What do you think that does for you as a candidate in this race?
Absolutely. So obviously it gives me a lot of encouragement knowing that I'm on the right path, doing the right thing. Not only Mayor Warren, but also former Mayor Barbara Bass. And those are two people that have been in this exact same position, know what it takes, know how to get the job done, and the characteristics that they have, the qualities that they have, and how they did their job. They see that in me, and that's a testament to my character, to my mission, to my vision, knowing that I will be able to carry the city forward. And that's something that they see in me, and I'm honored to have their support.
And Mr. Nix, when it comes to your own endorsements, you have U.S. Congressman Nathaniel Moran, who represents a good chunk of East Texas. He's the former Smith County judge. You also have the current Smith County District Attorney, Jacob Putman, among others. What do you think your endorsements say about you and your campaign?
Yeah, I think my endorsements really speak to my platform of making sure that we are being frugal and fiscally responsible with the taxpayer money. I think all of the leaders that we have on our endorsement list are all leaders who have proven that they value keeping taxpayers' dollars in their own pockets through even their big community projects, where when they came up and they needed to be retooled to lower prices and things like that, they went back and did that and made sure that they were value engineering large projects and even redoing budgets for their different departments when they needed to be trimmed because of how the community was dealing with expenses.
In this race, you both have talked a lot about downtown and what's happening downtown with the improvement project. John, I'll start with you here.
Yeah.
As a member of the half-cent sales tax board, you've voted against this work, and you've been a vocal opponent of what's happening downtown. Why is that?
Yeah, what I voted against is the current plan. Downtown has needed a facelift for a long time, and I've been a proponent of that. My problem with the plan that has been put forward is really the factors in the design, especially the subterranean work, and then the narrowing of Broadway, the addition of the roundabouts, and those things that really restrict our north-south connection, this tie that Broadway is between North and South Tyler, actually reducing that and making it to where they're not desiring it to be a flow through that it is. The hundreds and hundreds of cars that come right by the outside of this building. And just even a couple weeks ago, I think you saw when they had one lane of traffic blocked off on Broadway heading south. Traffic was backed all the way up through Gentry and was just a nightmare for people trying to come south. So, I mean, that's really indicative of some of the issues with the project and with the items in it. And so those kind of things really needed to be addressed and retooled and weren't. And those are the issues and the items that I'm against.
And Mr. Hene, when it comes to downtown, your office is downtown. You walked over to this interview today.
Absolutely.
Why do you think what's happening downtown with the improvement project is a worthy investment of taxpayer money?
So history shows us when we look at other cities for this exact same type of project, the rate of return is exponential. $1 for every public dollar invested returns $5 to $10 of a private investment. And so the rate of return is 5 to 10x, and then you see property values increase. You also see vacant structures not become or not be vacant anymore. And so your downtown is completely revitalized, not just the square here, but the entirety of downtown. And it's something that is going to be exponentially valuable to the entirety of the city because everything will flow out from here. A rising tide lifts all boats. And once we have a revitalized downtown, which is the heartbeat of our city, things start to flow from there.
And gentlemen, my next question is about potential conflicts of interest while serving as the mayor of Tyler. John, I'll start with you. You own your own small business, building, construction. When it comes to possible conflicts of interest that may come up, how do you plan on handling those? And not only when it comes time to vote on an issue in city council, but also in terms of influence outside of those meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you do have to be careful when especially when the outside of those meetings, but as I've proven when I was on P&Z and council and half cent, when need be, removal of yourself from conversations that do cause conflict, removal from yourself from organizations that can cause conflict in those votes, and then recusal when it comes to actual votes, and make sure that you're not in the rooms for the discussion or the vote. And have a long history of doing just that and not having any conflicts in those actual positions.
And Mr. Hene, when it comes to you, you're a partner and co-owner, I believe it is, of a law firm that handles business real estate. Possibly there could be some conflicts of interest down the road, maybe. How would you handle possible conflicts of interest while being the sitting mayor? So
the good thing is about my line of work, I don't think there's ever going to be a conflict of interest. I can't steer any legal work to my firm that the city does. That's not an area of law that I practice. And so for me, it's not an issue of may be or may not be an appearance of a conflict of interest. There's never going to be a conflict of interest with the type of legal work that I do and the type of legal work that the city needs. And so there won't be any opportunity for me to steer projects towards any of my developments or any interest that I own in the city. And so it's not an issue of may be or may not be of an appearance. There won't be any conflicts of interest with the type of work that I do.
When it comes to managing growth in the city, not only the growing population, but also that daytime population that we so often talk about, the fact that a lot of people come in from other cities and counties even to work in Tyler, to eat in Tyler, shop in Tyler, play in Tyler. How do you manage that growth? John, I'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that you can even hear if you have discussions with TxDOT is actually increasing our partnership and our communication with TxDOT. TxDOT's been very vocal about the fact that they don't feel that communication, that partnership in working with our traffic issues, and especially with the inflow and outflow we have during the day, or even our overall monthly inflow for our greater market area. So those things where we are making sure that we are working with TxDOT, that we're actually accepting projects they want to do in town to relieve traffic, and making sure that those things happen, and that we are helping that thing, especially with the net RMA, and making sure that all those partnerships are working and coming into town, and that we're just facilitating that and participating as need be.
And Stuart, how would you manage growth if elected as mayor?
I think it's a great thing that we have, like you mentioned, the number of people coming into the city limits each day. It's estimated that about 250,000 people are here between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. In my view, that's a good thing. That means we have people shopping here. That means we have people eating here, and that means we have people seeking health care here. And so ultimately, that's sales tax revenue for the city here. So that's a good thing, and we need to continue to be growing, but we need to grow, like you mentioned, responsibly. And the way I see that is addressing issues now instead of kicking the can down the road. Previous councils have failed to address infrastructure issues, whether it's water, whether it's wastewater, whether it's roads. And so that's something that I'm willing to do now instead of kicking the can down the road where we have future problems like the consent decree that we're under right now for the wastewater system.
I want to talk about the Tyler Public Library. Both of you have talked a lot about this at certain times within your campaign. Mr. Nix, I'll start with you. On your website, I was reading today, you have several documents listed there, and you say these receipts show years of inaction and also document unsuccessful attempts by citizens to get the library and council to move explicit books from the children and young adult sections. You go on to say we must protect our children. You say I'm working to make it happen. What does that work look like?
Yeah, well, that work looks like actually making sure that we put policies in place at the city council level so that it cannot be adjusted by staff or bureaucrats, where we make a clean teen section, and a clean teen section would be a teen section actually rated for 13 to 17-year-olds, not like the 13 to 24-year-old section that the youth section was just even a year ago. And so make sure that we have our children's section clearly defined, our teen section clearly defined. And the books we're talking about are the same books that are not allowed in ISD libraries anywhere in the state because of the sexual explicit and sexually violent nature of the books. These are not books that have to do anything with identity or orientation. This is actual, there's bestiality in some of these books, there's rape of minors. And these are books that were sitting on the same shelves as Harry Potter was, literally. And I have a daughter who has spent every week in the library since she was 5 and consumes 20 to 30 books a week. And staying ahead of her in her reading material is impossible. And Caldwell, when it lets out every day, hundreds of kids are in our library, actually unsupervised until their parents pick them up. And those are families that can't afford aftercare, and so the library is their aftercare. So we need to make sure that the city is not purveying these and making available these sexually explicit and sexually violent books. Now, I don't believe they should be removed or banned or burned or what everybody says, but they need to be in an appropriate section where they can be monitored. And I think that even in the communication with parents on what's available. There was stuff that was said that, hey, you can restrict this or restrict this. That was never stuff we were even told when we got a library card for our family. So that's the kind of stuff where, there can be things in place, but if policies are not in place and those standards are not followed by staff, then those kind of things can happen where children can be exposed to these kind of books. So.
And Mr. Hene, kind of a two-parter here for you. One would be, do you feel the same about the material for certain ages in the library? But the second part here, you have been named in a lawsuit. I'm not sure how much you can actually say about this, but it is alleged that you publicly confronted the former library director about a sign that was posted inside the library saying a truly great library has something in it to offend everyone. It's a sign that attorneys for that woman say she did not approve of. That library director was later fired. Can you talk anything about that particular instance? And then when it comes to the library, if elected as mayor, would you do anything different?
So it's kind of a three-part question. I want to address a couple things that Mr. Nick said and then answer your question as well. So one, hundreds of kids aren't getting let out of Caldwell unattended coming into our library. That's not happening. There's also a policy in place where if a kid or underage minor is in our library unattended, library staff is trained to now approach that kid, ask that kid, can I help you find what you're looking for? Can I help reunite you with your parent or your guardian? And so there are no hundreds of kids unattended in our library. Our library also has defined sections right now, a minor section for children, a youth section, young adult section, and then an adult section. So it does not go from 13 to 24. we have clearly defined age-appropriate sections in our library. We've also addressed issues where when somebody comes in to apply for a library card, it used to be where that minor or child could have carte blanche access to checking out a book anywhere in the library. And the parent had to specifically make a notation on the application of, I don't want my child to check out a book in a certain location. That has since been changed where it's now automatic, where somebody coming to apply for a library card can only check out a book in that age-appropriate section. If a parent or guardian wants their child to check out a book wherever, the option is on the application to allow that minor to have access to any section. So it's now been reversed. So those policies are now in place. And if somebody feels that a book is in an inappropriate section, there's also a review policy in place where there's a panel set up of 5 to 7 people. You have a retired teacher, you have a retired librarian, you have a professor at UT Tyler, you have a parent activist or a parent that has young children involved in the community, and then other people that may be on the committee. And each person reads the book and then makes a determination and decision of what section in the library that book should be located. And so if somebody feels that a book is not in an appropriate section, there's a review process for that. Pertaining to the lawsuit that you mentioned, I am not involved in the termination of any city employee, whether it's the librarian or any director position or any employee position at the city of Tyler. As a council member, we have one city employee, and that's our city manager. We can hire and fire the city manager. We can set salary. We can set benefits for the city manager. But as far as any other city employee, city council members cannot get involved with employment decisions and determinations of employment for various staff. And so the decisions made to terminate the librarian, I was not involved with. I had nothing to do with that. Why she was terminated, I can't comment on because I wasn't involved in that. So that's not a process that I was involved with. As far as the sign, I had been receiving community input from residents, and as a council member, that's what my job is to hear everybody's concerns, everybody's comments, and then address concerns and comments so everybody feels like their voice is being heard. And at that time, under those circumstances, I felt like the sign was not listening to people's concerns. And so I did go to the librarian and ask her about the sign, but it had nothing to do with her termination. I did not berate anybody. I did not yell at anybody. And so those issues I could comment on. Everything else in the lawsuit, I cannot make a comment on.
We've got a few minutes left here. I want to talk about... Sure, quickly, yes.
Once again, I mean, as far as like what the youth section was, age range, that's documented on my website from the head librarian herself stating what the age range was. We had videos of all the unsupervised kids coming from Caldwell into the library. We've made some of those shots part of one of our library videos. And as far as changes that have been made since, we brought a lot of this library stuff to light, that's positive, but nothing is there's no leadership or anything being set in stone at city council level to make sure that those things just don't automatically revert with a change of leadership at city council. Like, we have to make sure that those policies are set in stone. Like, I love the fact that they have cleaned up the sections and the youth sections and stuff. That's great. That needs to be a policy set by council. That needs to be led by council. And those are the things that are not being done, making sure that those things stay in place and are set in stone and are not at the whim of a library board or a librarian that doesn't have necessarily the same community standards that we do.
And quickly here, next question. Do you have something you want to say?
I'll make it real quick. I'll say those policy changes that we made at the library level were done years ago and not something recent just because somebody may have announced their run for mayor. So those were done a while back, and I will say that social issues do not have a place on city council where we should be making social issues we have a lot more important things to be focused on, like our infrastructure, our water, our wastewater, our police department, and our fire department. Those are things that city council should be concerned with, and not making social issues the forefront of city council.
I want to ask about spending, Mr. Nix. When you first announced you were running, I believe it was the same day as the State of the City last year, you had told me that you wanted to doge the city.
Yep.
It's been a while for some people since we've heard that term, Department of Government Efficiency. It was certainly in the news back then. When you say doge, what does that mean? And when it comes to city spending, what's your plan?
Yeah, when it comes to city spending, I believe that before we are spending more taxpayer dollars, we need to be able to prove that we're being as efficient as possible with the taxpayer dollars we already have. And I want to make sure that we're actually doing compliant audits to making sure that our processes, our spending, everything is efficient as possible. Where we can hold that against private sector standards, we're going to do that. When we need to hold it against public sector standards, we can do that as well. And I think that it's definitely something where we need to be doing that in every department, you know, from the library to the water department to streets to solid waste. And I think it's definitely one of those things. But even in responsibilities, you know, where Stuart was talking about social issues, you know, I also believe it's not the city council's job to purvey, you know, pornography in a youth section of a library.
Mr. Hene, when it comes to government spending, you're on council right now. Is there something you would do different as mayor when it comes to how the city spends its money?
I think we are very fiscally responsible with how we spend our taxpayer money. We have the lowest property tax rate in the state of Texas for any city with 10,000 or more people. And so we operate on a limited budget as it is. And to be able to fully fund a police department that has only one vacancy right now, but has the highest certification rating in the nation, to be able to fully fund our fire department that has one of the highest certification ratings in the nation, says something, says that we're doing it right. We're currently ranked the second best place to live in the state of Texas, and I don't think that's by accident. I think that means we're doing things the right way, utilizing the funds that we have the correct way, and as I mentioned at the beginning, that's what I want to continue doing.
And again, you guys are the only race on this ballot in this election. When we talk about the election that was held in early May, there were two other candidates, Shirley McKellar and James Wynn. First off, we'll start with you, Mr. Nix. Do you think you can win some of those voters over in this next election, the runoff? And how have you tried to do that in the past weeks leading up to early voting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we do believe that we'll be able to win voters over from both of those camps. And really, you know, our messaging as far as being fiscally responsible, maintaining and continuing and actually deepening our transparency to make sure that those things that the citizens are concerned about, they know all the details about, has really, you know, attracted people from all areas of the city. So, and then as far as how we're reaching out, we have continued to door knock in both of the North Tyler, Central Tyler, and Eastern Tyler districts especially, and going door to door and just making sure that we're hearing their voices who are, you know, voting for those other candidates that are no longer in the race.
And Mr. Hene, when it comes to those other candidates, McKellar and Wynn, are you confident that you can pull some of those people over into your camp?
Absolutely, and I know we already have, because a lot of them have reached out to me personally on their own initiative, and then we've also been able to contact several and talk about issues. And I believe former Councilman Wynn's vision and mine were more closely aligned with what we wanted for the city, and so it was kind of a natural progression for a lot of his supporters to join my team because they like the direction that we're headed, and they like our vision. So we've been able to get a lot of those supporters to join our team. Looks great. And then as far as former Councilwoman McKellar's supporters, we've been invited into a lot of churches around town, had a lot of great conversations about what matters for the entirety of the city. I've been able to sit down and break bread with a lot of people and actually hear from people what their issues are and concerns are, and talk about solutions. So it's been a great learning process to really hear from a lot of people in the community.
And we'll have to be quick with the answers to this last question, but if there's something you guys are united against, it is voter fatigue. People feel like they have been voting every other week, and in some ways they have. How do you convince people to come out for this election? The fact that this is the only race on the ballot. You do not have that Tyler Junior College bond measure that was on the last ballot, the council races. How do you convince people to come out and vote again for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a pleading at some point, right? And then, well, I know that I feel voter fatigue as well. This will be the 4th election. If you are a City of Tyler resident, you've been invited to participate in since the first of the year. It is just the two of us on the ballot, and so it's not really about, trying to change people's votes or encourage them at the door. Like, if they showed up, they probably know who they're voting for. So just making sure that we get our supporters to the polls and make sure that, if they're going to be out of town for election day, that they get to early voting and making that connection and just kind of prodding people, as it were, to the voting box as much as we can.
And Mr. Hene, what about you? How do you convince voters to come back out?
My messaging has been the same since day one, telling people that their vote truly matters and makes a difference. And when I hear people say, well, I'm just one vote, what does my vote matter? I explain to people, your vote really does matter, because if you pick up the phone and try to call the White House, you're not going to get the president on the phone. If you pick up the phone and call the governor's mansion, you're not going to get the governor on the phone. But you can pick up the phone and call your mayor. You can pick up the phone and call your city council person. We are right here in the community, working alongside you, living alongside you, raising our kids alongside you. And so the decisions that we make not only affect you and your families, but affect us too, because we're right here in the community with you. And so why not get out and exercise your right to vote for those people who are making those decisions that live here in the community with you?
All right, Tyler Mayoral candidates John Nix, Stuart Hene, thank you both for making some time to be with us here on our first episode. We appreciate that.
Blake,
we're going to be, you bet. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to be back with more East Texas politics on East Texas Now right after this.
Did you know you can watch KLTV 7 live or whenever you want? Totally free with no subscriptions. Just search KLTV 7 on your Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, or Android TV. Get local live news, first alert weather, and sports anytime you want it. Download and stream KLTV 7, watch live, or play it back later. It's easy to watch, easy to install, and it's free. This is KLTV 7 on your schedule. So the next time you stream, search KLTV 7 News.
Making plans? Let us keep you weather ready.
Spring weather can change quickly, but knowing when it's coming means everything.
We're giving you the first alert for a fast-moving system.
That's why the KLTV First Alert weather team is always here. Trusted forecasts, instant alerts, free on any device.
Tracking this storm live right now.
Because when it comes to severe weather, getting you the first alert makes all the difference.
KLTV, your first alert during severe weather.
And we welcome you back to East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. Our next guest on this first episode is Steve Cluxton, Superintendent of Pine Tree ISD. You are here today because you are running as an independent conservative for Texas Senate District Number 1. Why are you running for this seat?
You know, I've just watched where we've gone with politics over the last, 10, 15 years especially. Gotten worse in the last 10 years. How we've moved, both right and left, farther and farther to the extremes. I don't feel like I've moved. I feel like my party has abandoned me. And I voted Republican my whole life. But now we've gotten so far to the extremes, and there's no willingness to work together to try and find solutions. That just that wore thin on me. And probably the straw that broke the camel's back is when our governor took out-of-state billionaire money to beat Republicans that us Republicans elected, because they didn't do what he told them and his billionaire wanted them to do, to vote for vouchers. When you're circumventing the will of the people, I'm out. And the fact that the rest of the Republican elected officials in Texas didn't stand up and say, we're not doing this. They've got to hold the executive branch accountable, and they chose not to. It's time for change, and I plan to be the change.
And I was going to ask you, being a public school district superintendent, was it the school voucher issue that really pushed you into this race?
I think it was just the straw that broke the camel's back, and it wasn't so much the voucher issue itself, it's the manner in which it was passed. You know, if I don't vote the way you tell me, you're going to spend millions of dollars from an out-of-state billionaire in order to beat this person in a primary because they didn't do what you told them. That's not how representative government's supposed to work.
And you described yourself as a conservative independent, not for sale. What does that mean?
You know, I think here's our problem. I'm a conservative guy. I've been conservative my whole life. As I said, I voted Republican my whole life because I felt like they aligned with my conservative values better than the Democrat Party. But I feel like both parties now are controlled by billionaires and corporations. And if you don't do what they say, they're going to primary you. And they both do that. I mean, whether you're in a Democrat state or in a Republican state, they're both doing that. And it's like do what I tell you or what the money tells you. And to me, if that's happening, you're for sale. You've been bought and paid for.
You're taking on State Senator Brian Hughes. He was first elected to this seat back in 2016. Before that, he has served in the House, first elected as a state rep in 2002. He's been in office a while. He's got name recognition. How do you take someone like that on and win a race like this?
You know, I mean, everybody tells you, you know, it takes $2 million to win a Senate seat in Texas. And I'm like, it's a $7,200 a year job. Really? You know, to me, it's about going out and getting in front of people. I know it's a long shot, but to me, I believe I'm not the only one frustrated. I believe the vast majority of the electorate is frustrated with how things are. I believe my message will sell. And that's the reason I want to get in front of them and tell them this is what I'm about. I will be who I promise to be. I have one loyalty, and that is to the people of Northeast Texas. I don't have any loyalty to any corporations, any business, any politicians. I have a loyalty to the people that I would represent, and that's it. If it's not good for us, you know, then I'm out. I'm a no. Tell me how it benefits Northeast Texas.
And when we talk about the makeup of the Texas Senate right now, it's majority Republican, 18 Republicans, 12 Democrats. There is a vacant seat right now. You're running as an independent. How do you break through the partisanship and become an electable independent?
Well, I think if your message sells and the people are frustrated, and I believe they're probably more frustrated now than they've ever been, not only in Texas but across the nation, I think it's the time that an independent can get elected. And nobody wants to believe that can happen. But if it happens, it completely changes the system. Because I do believe we've got some common sense guys that want to do the right thing, but when you start threatening to primary them and just outspend them because they can't compete with the billionaire money or all the billionaire super PAC money, then they end up, you know, capitulating and voting a way that they know is not how their community or their, you know, electorate wants them to vote. If they know that an independent can win, then to me, they've got to change. All they got to do is look at them and say, well, I'll tell you what, if you want to threaten me like that, I'll run as an independent. And so it allows them to go back, and it removes the power of the billionaire money from basically controlling the election by pouring more money than you can deal with in a primary, whereas a very small percentage of people actually vote. You know, if you think about it, I mean, roughly, you know, in most years, you're going to have about 8 to 10% of Republicans vote and maybe 4 to 6% of Democrats. Well, if it's a gerrymandered, every district is gerrymandered. So if it's a Republican heavy, then basically the election is decided in the primary most of the time because it's either, you know, a far right candidate or a far left candidate. To me, I'm going to be choice.
And you mentioned that you did not appear on the primary ballot since you are running as an independent. There is a process and a deadline. You have to get so many signatures on a petition to be on the ballot come November. How does that process work? What's your deadline?
Deadline's the end of June. We've got to have 500 signatures, and it's got to be registered voters who did not vote in the primary, who do live in Senate District 1. And we're in the process of gathering those signatures now. And anybody that's in Senate District 1 that didn't vote in the primary that believes in what we're doing, just get in contact with me. I'll be happy to come to you. You know, we want to get those signatures. I'd say we're probably halfway there right now. I don't foresee that as being a big stumbling block. It's just a matter of getting the time and getting it all done.
And with the couple of minutes we have left here, Mr. Clugston, again, tell the people of East Texas, Senate District number 1, what will you do if you're elected as the next state senator?
Well, I'm going to represent them. I'm going to represent what is good for Northeast Texas. You know, let's see, we look at Northeast Texas right now, water's probably going to be the next biggest issue. And, you know, whether it's data centers or whether it's a metroplex, people want to siphon off our water. You know, I'm all for progress, but not at the expense of our way of life. And so we have to have somebody willing to stand there and fight for us. Not somebody that's going to cave to the billionaire money or the billionaire corporations. Somebody that's going to fight for the people. I mean, that's where the power's supposed to be, and we got to make sure it stays there. And that's what I'm going to do.
All right, Steve Cluxton, Superintendent of Pine Tree ISD. Today we're talking to you about running as an independent conservative for State Senate District Number 1. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Yes, sir. Appreciate
it. We're going to be back with more of East Texas politics on East Texas Now right after this.
East Texas Sports Now. It's a podcast featuring coaches and athletes from high school to the pros. We cover football, rodeo, fishing, and everything in between, with new episodes every week. East Texas Sports Now, available on all major podcast platforms.
Start the show. Show open. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, East Texas.
Thanks for waking up with us.
Mornings start here.
What if you didn't just check the weather, but understood it? Why storms build, where fronts come from, the story behind it all. Because weather isn't just in your forecast, it's everywhere. First Alert Weather Extra. It's just more.
And that'll do it for our first episode of East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. Join us next week when we talk with East Texas Congressman Nathaniel Moran. I'm Blake Holland. We'll see you next time.